This channel is doing a giveaway courtesy of Monster Tech. Stay tuned for details on how you can win. Hello everybody, this is Odd Job Entertainment bringing you another video, and today we're going to talk about FPS weapons, specifically energy weapons. Because energy weapons in FPS games have been a staple going as far back as Halo Combat Evolved. Yet, after many iterations and interpretations, they usually boil down to the same weapon, but with different effects. I'd like to see that change. Now speaking of Halo, the energy weapons there have a different strength than the ballistic human weapons. Stuff like the plasma rifle and plasma pistol are great for stripping shields, but not so good at dealing physical damage. The ballistic weapons are just the opposite. But this difference makes it so that you can be more effective if you plan ahead and use the sandbox to your advantage. Weapons in Halo, especially the golden age of the original trilogy, it's odd how often the original trilogy ends up being the best, were tools more so than weapons. Lots of flood coming your way? Shotgun. Jackals miles away messing you up? Sniper rifle. Elites bearing down on you? Plasma pistol and battle rifle. Depending on each scenario, there is a best combination that can get the job done, but it's not the best combo for everything. Except for the plasma pistol and BR combo, that's pretty much god tier. Engaging gunplay should feel like that though. There's not a one-size-fits-all weapon that annihilates everything, but there should be a clear role for the weapons you include. That's where the energy weapons in Star Citizen make me a little sad, because as cool as they look, what is the Gallant rifle if not an M16 with red bullets? And I think it could be so much more. First off, when you're buying ammunition for an energy weapon, you buy batteries, right? But you're actually just buying magazines with a different flavor. Each magazine has the exact same number of projectiles, and when it's taken out, the projectiles go with it. But Star Citizen already has a standard for how energy weapons work on ships in the form of capacitors. So what if the FPS energy weapons applied the same concept? This would make them a bit more like the classic plasma rifle from Halo, with the exception that now it can be reloaded. If you run low on ammo, you pop in another battery and it fills up the capacitor. This then gives a lot of variety in how the recharge rate can be utilized to diversify these weapons. For instance, if the battery slowly fills the capacitor, you'd still run out of bullets, but if you give it time, you'll passively gain them back. Maybe an attachment could be used to boost the recharge rate. But a sniper rifle that should be used decisively doesn't necessarily need the same high-speed charging system of an LMG. So a slowly filling sniper rifle could be the perfect option for the homestead defender who doesn't run into a lot of FPS combat. But a much faster capacitor would be needed to continually feed assault rifles, SMGs, and LMGs. At the same time, this also provides a way to prepare for an engagement differently than if you're just using ballistic weapons. Say your internal capacitor is already charged. What stops you then from inserting a new battery? Well, nothing. So while the capacitor is draining due to you firing, the battery is charging it back up. So you could potentially get close to twice the number of projectiles before needing to reload. But there's a trade-off, because once that double capacity is burned, now you must charge the capacitor again. So letting your energy weapon run dry could be a huge disadvantage. Now, Star Citizen doesn't have shields for FPS armor, and I don't think I want them to add it either. There's no reason to turn the combat in Star Citizen into a complete copy of Halo. But just as Halo has different uses for weapons by virtue of their damage type, I think this is another aspect that applies to Star Citizen. Energy weapons presumably dump a lot of heat into their target.
I know what's wrong with it. Ain't got no gas in it.
I'm not a doctor, but as a medical assistant and anyone with just a little bit of common sense, I think it's plain to see that you don't treat a bullet wound the same way you treat a third-degree burn. Since we already have some level of medical gameplay with plans to implement more soon, that's another area where these weapons can be diversified. In addition to medical treatment though, armor itself can be diversified in how they handle different damage types. If we treat plasma as heat damage, an armor piece that has higher resistance may be better at dissipating heat, composed of metal panels or heat sinks and such. Whereas a poorly optimized suit might have heat build up over time unless it has a cooling period to vent it off. and that built up heat could cause damage in the long run. A ballistic optimized suit may be different in that it handles impact damage better and may have more Kevlar-like materials or gel bladders to disperse kinetic energy, but might lack those same metal protections that help with the heat. Since we have things like the Uberev, which have an electron-based attack, maybe wearing a pair of grounding boots makes you take less damage. And just as we talked about how treatment for an energy weapon may differ from ballistic, the same could apply here as well. Maybe the electron guns shift more into how electrical damage typically affects the anatomy of your character. For instance, maybe getting hit causes your heart to stop in extreme cases, and a defibrillator is needed to get you back up. In less extreme scenarios, perhaps it functions as a taser of sorts and severely hampers your ability to move and respond. In the future, when prosthetics are in game, maybe cheaper appendages are more susceptible to hard resets from power surges where premium options may be more robust. If tweaks like this were implemented, it would push these electron guns into more of a tool for disabling rather than just another killing tool with arc bolts. This would make them perfect for the bounty hunter looking to cash in on higher value live captures. Rather than killing them outright, you can tase them, capture them, and place them in your ship. Those smart bounty hunters are probably going to keep an AED on ship for when tasing gets a bit intense.
Where are those little heart paddle things that George Clooney used? Give me these things! You're gonna kill him! Clear! Clear!
Furthermore, I think there's a lot of room for new weapon types. As an example, weaponized tractor beam, anyone? You can already do all kinds of shenanigans with the tractor beam that we have, but what if you could use it to violently push people around? Something akin to the effect of the gravity hammer from Halo, but in rifle form. In a previous video, I also mentioned how much I'd like to see beam weapons added to ship combat. That is on the horizon, but I'd also love to see it trickle into FPS combat as well. I remember one night we were doing a drug destruction mission as an org. We thought we were so clever for having brought multi-tools along with us equipped with the cutting tool. Surely, this would be an inexpensive way to quickly destroy these drugs, right? Which anyone who's done these missions know that punching those drugs is one of the slogs of the mission itself. Well, no. It's so slow, the cutting tool that is, that in fact it was still faster to just punch the drugs instead. Very disappointing. But why don't we have beam rifles? That's rhetorical, by the way, because the answer will always be development time and priorities, but I do want to point out that we could have them. There's not a lore reason to exclude them, and the technology implied in the setting of Star Citizen would suggest it as an obvious addition. Another concept I talked about in that same previous video was having projectile color scale with weapon size to indicate incoming damage. The majority of people seem to like the concept. A few voiced concerns about rainbow vomit, but I think that's just a matter of adjusting some parameters to add back some cohesion. But others voiced concerns that you should be scanning ships prior to an engagement to know what they have equipped. I can understand the logic behind that, but I also find it extremely situational when you as a player would have enough time to scan a ship prior to combat. Certainly, that's not the case in many of the server events we jump into. But in this case, I think the concept of weapon size corresponding to FPS weapon projectile color still applies. And where the argument of scanning prior to an engagement may apply in ship combat, I think it applies much less in the FPS arena. The time to kill is much shorter on FPS targets, so the idea that you can scan them prior just doesn't jibe here. But seeing at a glance what kind of damage your body is about to take makes you more likely to make the right decision in prioritizing which 9-tails target to take out first. But you may not have even realized that FPS weapons have different sizes. It's not as immediately apparent as it is with ship weapons. But there are different weapon sizes, and it determines as well what kind of attachments may be equipped. You can't put an 8x scope on your Arclight pistol, for instance. For the logic and reasoning behind these color changes, I'll refer you to that other video. But just know that I think it would be awesome here again to have FPS projectile color reflect incoming or outgoing damage. If we pair this to some of the concepts discussed at the outset, capacitors and batteries specifically, I think we can also see some potential here. Say you're marooned on a dangerous moon. You're waiting for help to arrive at your beacon, but night approaches and you hear the skittering sound of pyro crabs creeping closer. You You've got your Arrowhead sniper rifle, capable of firing small bolts and larger charged shots. Typically, the high energy shots are blue for the base fire and creeping into violet for the charged shot. But knowing a swarm of crabs are at the edge of your campfire that's now dying out, you tune down the power output to give you more shots. Still capable of taking out the larger crabs with a few charged shots, the smaller projectiles should be just enough to take out the younger crabs. As the final embers burn out of your fire, you hear that skittering sound kick up in intensity, and you know they're coming. You can barely make out the silhouette in the dark, but you fire the now red blast at anything moving. Thanks to the adjustments, you just might have enough shots to last until help arrives. Just as how you'd use different loadings in real life to get different performance out of a rifle, why wouldn't you be able to make similar modifications to your energy weapons? Similarly, just like how you can use subsonic rounds in weapons today to take more advantage of a suppressor, why not tune the sound out of your energy weapon at the cost of a lot of damage? I think these kinds of ideas would go great lengths to enhance the somewhat limited sandbox we have currently. Like I said before, as it currently stands, what is the Gallant rifle if not an M16 with red bullets? Expanding the sandbox means that there's different ways to approach an engagement, and planning and strategy can have more of a place. So to stitch this up, we can add a lot more variety to FPS damage types and effects. Using similar ideas outlined previously on this channel, we can also communicate this information more effectively to players. And Star Citizen has a lot of room for diversifying weapons to enrich the sandbox. I hope this discussion has got you thinking about how things can be changed to enhance your FPS combat experience and empower you as a player to plan for engagements and celebrate your successes more when they work. But what do you think about this topic? What kinds of effects would you like to see implemented with FPS weapons in Star Citizen? Do you agree with what I've outlined here? And how would you expand on it? Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing a giveaway courtesy of Monster Tech. They have been a great supporter of the channel, willing to take a risk on a channel just as small as mine. We did just reach the 70% mark on our subscriber goal of 1,000, which is pretty incredible. At the time of uploading this video, we're sitting at just over 700 subscribers, which is just unreal to me. I can't thank you enough for all the support, which is why I'm so happy to be able to do this giveaway with you guys. Monster Tech has graciously donated a set of chair or desk mounts for this giveaway, and all you have to do to have a chance to win is like and subscribe to my channel and comment on any of my videos during the giveaway period with that video's corresponding secret word. By this point, there's quite a backlog, so you've got quite a few chances to enter. Today's secret word is pretty simple. What concepts did you like out of what we've discussed here? How else would you change energy weapons to make them more exciting for FPS combat in Star Citizen? Let me know what you think down below, and until next time, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.